Mercedes' new two-door S-Class promises to be one of the most luxurious and stylish coupes money can buy. But how good is this new Mercedes? To find out, we're going to put it through a series of tests alongside the Porsche Panamera Turbo S. And first of all, we're going to ask the people of Birmingham which one of these two they think is the most glamorous.
The Mercedes, most definitely.
Without a doubt, Mercedes.
Nah, the black one, no question in that. Everything, the power, the look, the luxury within there, the technology. It's not even a question, really.
For me, probably the Mercedes.
I definitely think the Mercedes looks better.
The black one, definitely.
Everything about it's top quality.
For me, it's slightly more glamorous.
The Mercedes, it looks a beast. Very nice looking car. I can see myself in it.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, mate.
So it's been a pretty interesting evening judging people's thoughts on these cars, and I have to say unanimously most people we questioned in Birmingham loved the look of the Mercedes and thought the Mercedes was the most glamorous. And for the lucky owners that are going to live with cars like these, it's the interior that really matters, because you're going to be in the interior. When they're spending this sort of money on a car, you want an interior that's luxurious, comfortable, that makes you feel really special every time you get in the car. So to test that out, we're going to do about 150 miles now in each of the cars. In the night, a very long cruise on the motorway at night just to see what the cars are like. And inside the Panamera, it definitely feels like a quality car. The interior is very much like every other Porsche in the range, so the interior is focused around this big central transmission tunnel with lots of switches along it. The lighting inside the car is predominantly white, quite subtle but definitely upmarket. In terms of refinement, the Porsche is pretty impressive. The engine in this car is obviously a very, very serious performance engine, but it's a little bit like a Tiger that's not really roaring. You know there's a roar there, but really it just purrs along very quietly like a sleeping Tiger. When you're in normal mode on the gearbox, we're doing now just 55 miles an hour in 7th gear, it's just tickling over 1,000 RPM. It's very, very smooth, very, very quiet. The only thing I would say is the air suspension adaptive damping setup in this car doesn't deliver the sort of really cushioned ride you'd want from a Grand Tourer. So it's got 20-inch wheels, quite big wheels. The initial ride's okay, but it just sort of, the wheels thump over imperfections in the tarmac. But it's a small niggle overall. I could comfortably do some serious miles in this car tonight. But we're going to do a fair few miles in this one, then we're going to switch to the Mercedes and see how that makes us feel. So we switched into the Mercedes, and the second you get into this car, it just makes you feel so special. There are very few cars I've ever driven that have a cabin ambience that can match the current S-Class in terms of just the sense of luxury you get from inside this car. There's this beautiful blue mood lighting throughout the cabin, and you can change that to a whole sequence of different colours. And the coupe's got a lovely curve that flows around the dash from the driver to the passenger. You've got these two TFT screens here, and there's lots of tech in the car, but once you get used to how it all works, it's very intuitive, and the refinement in this car also adds to that. Now, it might be an AMG, but you could almost forget that sometimes. There's masses of performance on tap, but when you're just tickling along at 70 miles an hour, the engine is super smooth. There's no wind noise in the cabin. Everything, the outside world is completely isolated. And in the comfort setting on the suspension, it actually rides quite nicely as well. The big wheels do pick up on expansion joints on the motorway, but aside from that, it rides lovely, there's no noise, it's just a really, really luxurious place to be. But these cars are about more than just luxury and refinement, they're also about performance and handling. So the next stop on our journey is a test track, and tomorrow we're going to put this and the Porsche through its paces around our test track. Okay, so the Porsche just pipped the Mercedes in a straight line drag battle, but it'd be rude not to find out what these cars are like through the corners. And this Porsche really does turn into a completely different car when you head onto the circuit. On the road, the air suspension and the adaptive dampers don't always feel like they just struggle to really find the balance in that fight against weight, power and comfort and handling. It never feels completely sorted on the road. It wriggles and squirms a little bit, and the ride's a bit sort of unresolved. Never really feels like it gets into its sweet spot. Head onto the track and you put the system into Sport Plus mode, and the Panamera just sort of feels like it hunkers down on the air suspension. It stiffens up, it lowers the ride height, the exhaust gets so much louder. The car just takes on a really, really racy feel, and when you start to push it like now, it just suddenly feels like you're driving a really big, heavy 911 four-wheel drive 911, and that's a real testament to this car. It just comes alive. It's a lot more agile than the Mercedes. It's quite brutal, faster gear shifts. It just really, really comes alive. But the body control is really, really good and more natural than the sort of fairly artificial body control systems in the Mercedes. Brakes are good. This one obviously comes with ceramics as standard, so really, really good brakes. And obviously it's four-wheel drive, so that gives you fantastic traction out to the slower corners and through these corners here where you've got really long loading to the left and to the right, real change of direction. The Porsche copes that change of direction really well for a car that weighs nearly 2 tons. And it's seriously quick as well. And it just feels like it's in its home environment here. In some ways, the Panamera feels like it's a sports car that's got a four-door body, and in comparison, in some ways, the Mercedes feels like a big luxury saloon that's been given a sleek body. And that's really the difference between these two cars. I think it depends on where your priorities lie and to which one you want to go for. If you're into ultimate driving thrills on the circuit, there's no question the Porsche is the one to go for. So the Mercedes lost out in the drag race with the Porsche, but trust me, you'll never feel shortchanged by the performance in this car. The engine is so smooth and it builds speed so quickly, and the car's so refined that on the road you really need lots of self-control because you just don't realise how quickly you're going in this car because it's just really, really smooth, really, really fast. And on the road, it strikes a really nice balance between comfort, refinement and grip. But the question is, when you're released onto a track and you can go a little bit faster, how does it compare to the Porsche? Well, the first thing is the engine's very different. It doesn't rev as hard as the Porsche. It revs quite quickly, so you've got to remember not to hit the rev limiter. It's still very smooth, but as I say, lots of power there. The gearbox is quite nice, dual clutch, shifts quite nicely. Not quite as fast as the Porsche's gearbox when it's in its raciest mode. And what we've done in the Mercedes is we've got everything into its raciest setting, if you like. The stability control is fully turned off. And also it's a rear-wheel drive car, so you can there, just get into the throttle and get into some power slides. But there's still a little bit of softness and forgiveness in the car. What does take a bit of getting used to is the dynamic curve system. So what it does is it just prevents roll in the body. And if you don't have it on and you go through a corner, you can feel the car goes into the corner and takes a set into the corner, and then you can feel the compression in the damper. When you have it on, you don't get any of that. It's just the car stays very, very flat. It's a little bit artificial, takes a little bit getting used to, but it does keep the body very flat as it goes through the corners. But it's still really, really enjoyable and doesn't feel in any way outclassed on the circuit. It's not as sharp as the Porsche, and if you were going to take one on a track day, you'd definitely take the Porsche. But that's not really what these cars are about. These cars are about blending performance with unrivaled luxury and lots of refinement. And the AMG does that really, really well. It's not as intense as other AMG cars, but that's what you'd expect for an S-Class. And I've got to say, as an all-rounder, this car really is pretty hard to beat. Both of these cars are eye-wateringly expensive, but the breadth of their abilities is really amazing. On the one hand, they're stacked with technology, offer masses of refinement and comfort, and yet on the other hand, they offer near supercar performance and amazing handling. So which one should you go for? Well, as our test has proven, if you want to be fastest against a stopwatch, whether in a straight line or around some corners, then you need to go for the Porsche. But if you want the ultimate in cabin ambience, refinement and luxury, then you're probably better off with the Mercedes. and there's no doubt that the people of Birmingham love the look of the new S-Class Coupe. But whichever one you choose, they're probably going to be all the car you're ever going to need. To watch our Mercedes S-Class drift video, click on the left-hand side, or to see the new Porsche Macan Turbo S take on the Cayman R, click on the right-hand side. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel by clicking on the Auto Express logo and press the play button to watch our latest video.